Lyra's lungs burned with each breath as she ran across the scorched battlefield. Explosions tore through the air around her, and the ground shook beneath the pounding of war machines. Her armor, once gleaming and strong, was now dented, scorched, and cracked. She had fought for hours, defending her people against an enemy that seemed to multiply with every passing moment. Every strike, every parry, had cost her strength she no longer had. Her claws ached, her muscles screamed, and her vision blurred from exhaustion. She stumbled and fell to one knee, gripping the jagged edge of the cliff beneath her. Below, a sea of fire and debris stretched to the horizon. The enemy had overrun much of her world, leaving ruin in its wake. Lyra's wings twitched, small sparks of energy flickering along their tips as she tried to rise. But her body refused to obey. She could feel the warmth of blood seeping through her armor, her life force fading like the last glow of a dying star. Her enemy's drones hovered above, scanning for any remaining survivors. She knew that if she stayed even a few moments longer, she would be detected and finished off. Her eyes began to close, a bitter resignation settling in her chest. Perhaps this was the end. Perhaps death was the only mercy left in this world. She let her head tilt back, the wind whipping through her hair, and shut her eyes, letting herself drift toward the final darkness. Then she felt a sudden shift, a presence she did not recognize. It was not the enemy. It was not a drone or a weapon. It was something alive, something human. A firm grip lifted her from the ground before she could even understand what was happening. Her body was weak, but her mind sharpened with disbelief. "You're not going to die here," a voice said, calm but filled with quiet authority. Lyra's eyes fluttered open just enough to see him. He was unlike any creature she had ever encountered. His skin was pale but strong, his frame lean yet muscular, and his eyes, bright, unwavering, looked directly at her with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. She tried to speak, but no words came. He carried her effortlessly through the chaos, dodging falling debris and enemy fire. Lyra's heart raced, not just from fear, but from the realization that she was being saved by a human, a species she had always underestimated. Her mind filled with questions, but the pain in her body was so great that she could not think clearly. She felt her consciousness slipping again. Yet the human's steady presence anchored her, a lifeline in the storm of her despair. As they ran, she noticed the way he moved. He was not wearing heavy armor or carrying weapons, yet he navigated the battlefield with precision and courage that rivaled any warrior she had known. His hands were steady, his reflexes sharp, and his determination palpable. Every time debris fell near them, he adjusted, shielding her without hesitation, his own safety clearly secondary. Lyra felt something stir within her, a flicker of admiration, and perhaps something more. Finally, they reached a small cave hidden beneath the cliffs. The human set her down gently, his hands brushing against her scorched armor as he checked her injuries. She could smell his sweat and the faint scent of metal and earth. It was a strange comfort, grounding her in a reality she had not believed she would see again. "You're badly hurt," he said. "I can help you, but you have to trust me." Lyra tried to speak, but her throat was dry, her lips cracked. She could only nod slightly, her pride warring with her need to survive. The human worked quickly, using strips of cloth from his own uniform to bind her wounds. His movements were methodical, precise, and confident. Lyra marveled at his calm under pressure. In her culture, humans were often considered fragile, unpredictable, or unworthy of trust. Yet here was one risking everything for her, saving her life when she had believed no one could. Hours passed, though it felt like mere minutes. The cave became their refuge, a small pocket of safety in a world of chaos. Lyra lay on the ground, her body trembling with pain and exhaustion, while the human kept watch outside, listening for approaching threats. She tried to study him, to understand how someone so seemingly ordinary could be so extraordinary. "You're different from the others," she whispered finally, her voice hoarse. The human turned to her, a faint smile on his lips, but his eyes remained serious. "I've seen worlds fall," he said. "I've seen people give up. I learned long ago that survival isn't about strength alone. It's about courage, and sometimes about saving someone when no one else will." Lyra's mind reeled at his words. Courage. She had always thought that was something her people were born with, something innate to her alien warrior bloodline. Yet here was a human, a species she had underestimated for her entire life, embodying it more fully than many she had fought beside. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, a spark of hope she had not felt in years. As darkness fell outside the cave, Lyra's breathing slowed. The pain in her body was overwhelming, but the human's presence was steady, unwavering. He spoke softly, telling her about his home planet, about small victories he had fought for, and about the people he had protected. His words were simple, but they carried weight, grounding her mind in something beyond the battlefield, beyond the fear of death. Lyra found herself drifting again, not toward oblivion this time, but toward a fragile sense of trust. When she finally allowed herself to close her eyes, it was not in surrender, but in cautious hope. She felt the human's hand brush hers as he adjusted her bandages, and for the first time in a long while, she did not feel alone. Hours turned into the night, and Lyra's consciousness ebbed and flowed like the tide. In moments of clarity, she watched the human outside the cave, scanning the horizon with a quiet vigilance. In moments of weakness, she remembered the battlefield, the fire, the pain, and the despair she had felt. Yet through it all, the human never faltered. He was patient, careful, and unyielding. At one point, she managed to whisper, "Why are you helping me?" He looked down at her, his expression calm, but filled with intensity. "Because no one deserves to die when there is a chance to live. Because courage is worth more than fear. And because sometimes saving one life can change everything." Lyra's mind tried to process his words. She had always believed that humans were fragile, incapable of surviving the harsh realities of war. Yet this one had risked everything, carried her from certain death, and stayed vigilant through the night. She realized that perhaps humans were not weak. They were resilient, adaptable, and above all, determined. When the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Lyra opened her eyes again. She felt the pain in her body, but also something new: gratitude, admiration, and a fragile sense of hope. The human knelt beside her, his hand steadying her as she struggled to rise. "You're stronger than you think," he said simply. "And we're not done yet." For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Lyra did not close her eyes in surrender. She looked up at the human holding her, and in that moment she understood something profound. She was alive, not by chance, but because of him, and perhaps, just perhaps, humanity. This strange, resilient species was capable of more than she had ever imagined. Together, they prepared to leave the cave, facing the unknown dangers ahead. Lyra's body was weak, but her spirit began to stir. She had survived the fall, thanks to a human. And as they stepped into the harsh light of a world still at war, she realized that this unlikely alliance might be the beginning of something far greater than either of them could have imagined. The human glanced at her, offering a small, reassuring smile. "We move forward, together." Lyra nodded, her heart racing, her mind alert. The battlefield was still waiting, and danger lurked in every shadow, but for the first time in years she felt something stronger than fear. She felt hope, and with hope she knew she might survive. Lyra's legs trembled as she followed the human across the rocky terrain. The battle-scarred landscape stretched endlessly before them, a mixture of jagged cliffs, scorched plains, and distant fires still smoldering from the night's attacks. She could feel the ache in her body, every movement sending sharp jolts of pain through her muscles, yet she pressed on. She was alive, and that alone was enough to drive her forward. The human's presence beside her offered a strange comfort. He moved with confidence, navigating the debris-strewn ground with ease. Lyra tried to match his pace, but often lagged behind, forcing him to glance back and offer her a hand. Each time she took it, she felt a spark of reassurance, a reminder that she was not alone. In moments of exhaustion, his calm words kept her going. "Just a little further," he said. "We'll find safety, and then we plan our next move." Eventually, they reached a plateau overlooking a valley. From there, Lyra could see remnants of her world, the ruins of her city, the burned forests, and the distant outline of enemy forces gathering. Her heart clenched at the sight. So much destruction, so many lives lost, and yet here she was, still standing. And it was because of this human, this strange creature who had risked everything to save her. The human crouched beside her, scanning the horizon through a small optical device. "They're regrouping," he said, his tone calm but alert. "We'll need to move carefully if we want to survive." Lyra nodded, her mind already shifting into tactical mode despite her fatigue. She had been a warrior her entire life, and even weakened, she could sense danger and opportunity in every shadow. As they descended into the valley, Lyra began to notice the human's resourcefulness. He used simple tools, clever traps, and his environment to their advantage. At one point, he rigged a fallen tree as a makeshift bridge across a chasm, guiding her safely over the gap. Another time, he used smoke from a distant fire to conceal their movements from patrolling drones. Lyra watched in awe as he solved problems she had assumed would require advanced alien technology. During a brief rest near a small stream, Lyra finally found the courage to speak. "Why do you do this?" she asked quietly, staring into the water. "Why risk your life for me, a stranger?" The human knelt beside her, dipping his hands into the cool water. "Because someone had to," he replied simply. "Because giving up isn't an option. Because courage isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard. And because I've seen what happens when people lose hope. I won't let that happen if I can stop it." Lyra considered his words carefully. In her culture, honor and strength were measured by battlefield victories and power, yet this human seemed to embody a different kind of strength. One born not from conquest, but from compassion and determination. She felt something unfamiliar stirring inside her. Respect, admiration, and perhaps a budding sense of trust. Their journey continued, and soon they encountered a small outpost, partially hidden among rocky cliffs. The human gestured for her to stay low as he approached the entrance. Moments later, he returned with supplies, food, water, and medical kits. Lyra helped him carry them back to their temporary shelter. The act of sharing these simple resources, the quiet camaraderie, made her feel a connection she had not experienced in years. Night fell again, but this time Lyra did not feel the same dread as before. She sat beside the human, tending to her wounds with his guidance. "You're stronger than you think," he said, handing her a piece of food. "Pain fades, but determination lasts. You've survived this long, and you'll survive the rest too." Lyra took a bite, her mind reflecting on the journey so far. She had faced death countless times, yet here she was, alive and moving forward. Not alone, but with a human who had proven that courage and ingenuity could match even the fiercest alien warriors. She realized that humans were underestimated by many species, including her own, and that perhaps this resilience was why they could endure against impossible odds. The following day, They resumed their trek toward a distant signal the human had detected. It was a call for reinforcements, a chance to turn the tide against the invading forces. Along the way, they encountered enemy patrols, but the humans' quick thinking allowed them to avoid confrontation. At one point, Lyra had to step in, using her combat skills to silently neutralize a group of drones while he monitored their surroundings. They worked seamlessly together, a blend of alien strength and human ingenuity. As they neared the source of the signal, Lyra began to feel a sense of urgency. She had once believed her people were doomed, that her world would fall completely under enemy control. But now, with this human by her side, a glimmer of hope returned. His presence reminded her that survival was possible, that courage could inspire change, and that the human species possessed a unique, unyielding strength. When they finally reached the location of the signal, they found a hidden base with survivors from Lyra's people. The human immediately began coordinating their defense, using strategies that Lyra had never seen before. He positioned forces to maximize their strengths, utilized terrain to their advantage, and inspired confidence in those around him. Lyra watched, amazed as humans and aliens worked side by side, their combined efforts creating a force greater than the sum of its parts. The enemy arrived sooner than expected, a fleet of drones descending from the sky. Lyra felt a surge of adrenaline as she prepared to fight once more. But this time, she was not alone. The human stood beside her, calm and ready. Together they led the charge, his quick thinking and her combat skills blending perfectly. Lyra marveled at how he adapted in real time, using his environment and instincts to outmaneuver the enemy. The battle was fierce, but through their combined efforts, the enemy was repelled. Lyra felt the exhilaration of victory, not just for herself, but for her people. She had seen the worst of despair, and now she had witnessed the power of hope and courage embodied in a human. Her perspective shifted completely. Humans were not fragile, not weak. They were resilient, adaptive, and capable of greatness beyond what she had imagined. As the dust settled, the human turned to her, a faint smile on his face. "We did it," he said. "This is just the beginning. There's more to rebuild, more to protect, but we'll face it together." Lyra's chest swelled with emotion. She had begun this journey thinking she would die alone, closing her eyes to surrender. Instead, she had opened them to see a human holding her, guiding her, and inspiring her. She realized that survival was more than physical endurance. It was courage, compassion, and the determination to fight for something greater than oneself. For the first time, Lyra felt true hope. She looked at the human, seeing not just a savior, but a partner, a comrade, and a symbol of the extraordinary potential of humanity. She understood that her people's future, and perhaps the fate of countless worlds, depended not just on strength, but on the resilience and ingenuity of humans. Together, they began planning the next steps, coordinating with the survivors to strengthen defenses, repair structures, and prepare for future battles. Lyra shared her knowledge of combat and tactics, while the human offered innovative strategies and problem-solving approaches. The partnership was seamless, a perfect blend of alien prowess and human determination. In quiet moments, Lyra reflected on how much she had underestimated humans. They were not just survivors. They were innovators, thinkers, and warriors in their own right. Their courage was different from her own, but no less powerful. She had been saved by a human, but in turn she had come to understand the incredible potential of his species. As the sun set over the valley, Lyra and the human stood together, watching the horizon. Fires burned in the distance, but the survivors were safe for now. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that she had not only survived, but had discovered a new ally, a new perspective, and a new hope. Lyra finally understood that closing her eyes had not been the end. Opening them had revealed something far greater, a human's courage, a chance to rebuild, and the beginning of a new chapter for her people. And as she looked at the human who had saved her life, she knew that together they could face any challenge, overcome any enemy, and prove that humanity's potential was limitless. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in years, Lyra felt ready to face whatever came next. She had survived the fall, not alone, but with a human holding her. And that knowledge, that connection, gave her the strength to stand, fight, and hope. The war would continue, but now she knew that she and her people were not powerless. The human glanced at her, a quiet understanding passing between them. "We move forward," he said, "together." Lyra nodded, feeling the weight of her armor and her injuries, yet sensing a new strength within her. The world was still dangerous, the enemy still looming, but hope had returned, and with this human at her side, she knew that survival was only the beginning of what they could achieve.